Aelyria Prime. It's the end of Telath as we know it. Post number 5. Roscarnis de Lylles. She dared to argue technicalities with him? He was outraged, and those words served only to close another synapse here and there, causing the inflection within him to rise further. He couldn't believe his ears, and indeed, the look on her face was enough indication that what he had heard from his source had been nothing but the truth. It was far from jealousy that propelled these emotions. It was something far more basic. He is retaliating because she hurt his pride, for certainly simply by being a Lylles, by association of the marriage she had with him, would be enough to satisfy a woman like her. Clearly he was mistaken. She was more vile than he had originally thought her to be. Guilt must have unhinged you, milady. You're making excuses? His voice was incredulous, and indeed as she turned to make her own escape from his suite, he was stalking after her, his steps thundering behind, so that just as she turned, he was bearing down upon her, both arms grasping at her wrists, overpowering her with his own strength, as he shoved her slightly so that she was almost hitting the doors that served as the only barrier to her escape. He was raging, and ironically, Roslynn would have never seen him regard her with such potent emotion. He leaned down and whispered against her ear, his breath hot and accusing against the inner shells of her ear, his grip intensifying on her smaller hands, crushing down on her, fueled by anger. No, milady, you are a whore because you are cavorting with another man who is not your husband, he hissed, and he continued, acid dripping in the tone of his voice. You are a whore because you succumb so wantonly to your feminine lust. And then his voice turned frightfully frigid, his gaze with his enlarged pupils revealing a man on the verge of violence, just requiring any excuse to dispense or release that emotion, to be satisfied with her pain. And dutiful husband or not, you are still a whore. The final sentence flowed bitterly, the man clearly unaffected by that accusation. In Roscarnis's very hypocritical worldview, especially when it came to this particular woman, what he had done, snubbing her, ignoring her and denying her existence in his life, was far less incriminating than her deeds, and quite intimately, he was aware that he was likely the laughingstock of House Califrete, which only served to make him madder. So unused to the fury that those words bubbled out without any careful thought, neither were they delivered in a succinct manner. Indeed, the emotion was so powerful that at times it felt his tongue was knotted by the anger alone. I should strike you, audacious as you are. Roscarnis's rage greased over his face and lips as they contorted in an unpleasant fashion, one hand releasing her wrist from his grip, raised high above his shoulders as though ready to smite her with a slap that was already set in motion.